Welcome to the Dojo, the podcast where we turn marketing news into marketing tasks that you can use to achieve your marketing goals for the year and increase your revenue. This week we'll hear 3 stories, including one from our special guest. We'll pick the best one to turn into tasks that you can do today. I'm Dale Davies, head of marketing at Exposure Ninja, an industry-leading search agency. And as always, I'm joined by Tim Cameron-Kitchen, founder of Exposure Ninja, and Jess Percival, digital marketing specialist, also at Exposure Ninja. And this week's guest is Joe Glendinning, Sales Director at Renew and Sustain, an energy consulting company run by renewable energy enthusiasts who love nothing more than helping businesses reduce their business energy costs. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the Dojo.
Hi. Nice to be
here. Joe, what's your relationship to marketing?
I suppose, formally speaking, not very much. I'm not qualified in marketing. I've no marketing prowess or history behind it. But at the same time, I do manage the full sales cycle, which comes from marketing, inbound leads, all the way through to bringing customers on board. And I have quite a close relationship with Exposure Ninja, who help us with the digital side of things. I suppose, though, informally speaking, we're all marketers, aren't we? We market ourselves every day to every single person that we meet. We share our beliefs, our values, promote the people we work for. So I suppose we're all marketers, aren't we, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that's like internal or external, you're trying to convince somebody else that you've got something that they want, or you can help them to achieve what they're trying to do. So yeah, I agree with you. Well, we're going to whiz around and ask for headlines. So Tim, would you like to start us off? What's your headline for this week?
In AI Corner this week, we're talking about Google rolling back its AI overviews.
Interesting. Jess, what's your headline for this week?
My headline is, why is IKEA hiring staff in Roblox?
Sorry, what?
I always bring a normal story, Dale. You know this.
Always. Reliable. And Joe, your headline for this week?
Klarna cuts marketing spend by 25% through the use of AI.
Curious one. I don't know where to start with this. I feel like I'm going to have to start with the AI corner. It's top of mind for me, as always. So, Tim, let's start with you, please.
This will be very quick. So for those first-time listeners, Google has been testing an AI overview that it shows at the top of the search results. It's been testing this for about a year and then started rolling it out live in the US a few weeks ago. And many of us who've been studying it thought this thing really isn't ready for prime time, and we didn't think it was particularly ready to be rolled out, but Google were doing it anyway. So we grabbed our popcorn and waited, and it has been very entertaining. There's been some examples of, I guess, some of the AI overview answers that have gone viral, with this thing telling people to eat rocks if they wanted to increase their iron intake. Stick cheese on pizza using glue, other people to drink urine. And it's been very entertaining to product this thing and try and get it to give bad answers. My observation so far is that it has struggled in 2 areas. Firstly, nonsense queries. So I asked it, what's a better pet, a shark or a ninja? And it said, both of these can be great pets. Well, that's a nonsense query where there is no existing content online. So it's going to make up something to satisfy me, the searcher. The other category where it's struggling is like the glue on the pizza thing, is where it's drawing information from Reddit and then sharing this, but without obviously the context that seeing a sarcastic post in Reddit sort of gives you. So this has been reported with glee by the traditional media, who are clearly feeling incredibly threatened by this new adventure from Google. Some of the headlines, things like Wired, Google's AI overviews will always be broken. CNET reported Google's AI overviews weren't ready for prime time. And New York Times with glee, Google rolls back AI search feature after flubs and flaws. Google then responded. They released a blog post called AI Overviews about last week, where Liz Reed, who is the VP of Search at Google, said, basically, yeah, we saw it. Yeah, some of these are faked. We're making some changes. Don't worry. We're going to be absolutely fine. We're the masters at search. She mentioned that there's about a dozen technical improvements that they're making, and they found that about 1 in 7 million searches were impacted or wouldn't have met their content standards. the trouble is for Google, because they process billions of searches per day, even 1 in 7 million, an error rate of 1 in 7 million is still a fairly significant number of errors per day. Observing what's happened since then, also Google seems to have pulled right back on the number of searches that are triggering AI overviews, which seems kind of interesting. I did a test, actually, the New York Times article, the writer did the same test, where in the AI overviews announcement that Google ran at their I/O developer conference, there were, I think, 6 different searches that they ran on the screen to show you. And I tested them, and I could only get one of them to now respond with an AI overview. So the others had responded, were like advertised as these are some of the things that you can test. And in fact, when I tested that same response again, it didn't show up at all. So as of this morning, I could get 0 AI overviews on the demo ones that Google was showing off. So it seems to me like they're really pulling back on this. And I think the question that we all have to answer is, where do we go from here? Do we continue to prepare as if Google is rolling out the AI overviews? Or do we say, yay, the beast is dead, we can just carry on with normal life and we just continue doing regular SEO because AI overviews have been taken out the back and shot? I mean, I've got some opinions on this, but I'd be curious to see what we all think of this crazy mess that Google has produced.
Yeah, I did say last week I thought this might happen when I was sharing the stories and just thinking what is happening. And I think I also said to Dale and Tim in a call earlier, people are memeing on it as well so much. They are making fake responses, and they're not even trying to make them look realistic because they just think it's funny. And so that's kind of, it feels like that's sort of the masses' response to this is to just meme on it. I do feel like it will come back and that it'll end up as the norm and people will just get used to it and that will be that. But for now, it seems very rocky.
Sounds like it's Good Friday night in. How many times can you break Google?
This is it.
Yeah.
I'm really curious when you talk about where do we go from here, Tim? Where do we go from here? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I personally think that Sundar, Google's CEO, has said so publicly, this is the future of search, this is coming, we're rolling this out, that his reputation is really tied up in making this roll out. So if it does get taken out the back and shot, I think he has to go with it, which is, I don't think what's going to happen. I think they're going to continue trying to fix this, and I expect it will come back. It kind of has to come back for Google to survive, I think, potentially an exodus to Perplexity or ChatGPT over time. We had Lucy from the dev team on last week, and she mentioned that she doesn't use Google for informational search queries. She uses ChatGPT. Now, obviously, that's not the typical user, but the fact that there are some people now who are starting to use ChatGPT for informational queries instead of Google, Google has to come back with a competing product. And this is kind of it. This would be a ChatGPT killer if they could get it right. The problem is they haven't got it right. To me, it seems like the issues here are actually fairly simple to solve. They should be fairly simple to solve. Don't serve AI overviews for nonsense queries, and don't use user-generated content as the basis of responses. This seems like the sort of thing to an outsider that could be fixed with a good system prompt or a cheaper model that vets the answer before it goes to the searcher. And if it can't vet the answer, or it finds an issue, it just doesn't serve the AI overview. But then, I don't know if you remember Google's previous issue with Gemini, where it was serving all sorts of historically inaccurate pictures about race and things like this. That seemed like a simple fix as well. But here we are today, months later, and Google still hasn't put that functionality back. So clearly it's finding it difficult. Google, the organization, is finding it difficult to resolve these apparently simple issues. So I don't think it's straightforward. I think as marketers, we have to prepare as if this thing is coming out because it is so potentially disruptive. And the advice really is to continue just making sure that you're being talked about online, because all of these chatbots are using online content, all of these LLMs are trained on online content when they're being asked to recommend businesses, products, or services. So you need to make sure that you're continuing to be talked about online, so that whatever does come next to replace Google eventually, you are being found and you're being seen and recommended. I think that's all we can do, really. And enjoy the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple of different thoughts, but I think two of the main ones are the AI overviews and maybe rolling out in a similar way to feature snippets. It's a small percentage to begin with, but it becomes a larger part of the design of Google over time. Like it's probably around 7% right now, 10% of searches return a feature snippet, maybe even more than that. I haven't checked in a little while. It's quite possible with this, it's just going to be a gradual rollout. And Tim's point about Google has all these different things it has to consider. Is it a problem with compute and they need this, smaller double check in place? That it's going to take some compute, and you see all the news headlines at the moment about how much water is used to cool down all these like networks and centers and stuff. It's like there's a very complex situation for Google compared to the simplicity of OpenAI, smaller outfit, smaller unit, smaller server base to have to take care of. Like it's much easier for them to make a change. So it's worth keeping an eye on what they're doing to figure out what Google will be like in a year, 5 years from now. Like keep an eye on the smaller ones to see where the larger fish will go. There's some fishing thing in there, I'm sure. So like just pay attention. You still got to pay attention to all this stuff. Still plan. What is it? Skate for where the puck is going and all these different analogies. Like it's inevitable. It's going to be AI overviews will be 20% of search in like 2 years from now. That's what I think, at least, maybe if not more. Just work towards that, and you'll probably, even if it only goes to 10 or 15% like feature snippets, you'll still be in a better place than if you didn't do anything at all. So yeah, keep moving towards that. Joe, I'd love to hear your story next, please.
Yeah, so Klarna's cut its marketing spend by 25% through the use of AI, despite actually increasing the number of campaigns it's running, which is, I think, amazing. They've done it using generative AI to create more than 1,000 images in the first 3 months, which would normally take them 6 weeks to do, and they've managed to get that down to 7 days. They're now not even recruiting for marketing anymore because of it. They've actively paused it because they've got a computer doing all the work for them. Does that mean that marketers as a whole may become redundant? Maybe, but I suppose someone's got to sit there and sort of monitor it all, haven't they? But they've built their own AI-powered copywriting tool, which now does 80% of all their copywriting for all their advertising. So, yeah, that's my story.
Interesting. I think there are a couple of things that immediately pop to mind, and maybe it's a question for Jess and Tim about the threat to marketing, or in particular, you've pointed out there about image generation, how that's like taken in and done a lot faster. There's no need to brief; you just give the brief to the tool, and it will just create it. Do you think that there is a threat to ad creative and things like that, and how that's delivered through agencies like ourselves, or do you feel that there's still like an upside to picking high expertise, high knowledge base ad team, ad creative, ad agency?
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation a little bit in the past, but I think what might happen is that made without AI starts to be like the no added preservatives kind of marketing, right? In the maybe some people are going to trust ads more that they know aren't AI generated, or maybe AI is going to become the baseline, and maybe they all start to have this kind of AI vibe. It's like I'm still quite good at identifying AI images if they're kind of lazily generated. I can be like, oh, it has that weird haze, like some noise has been added over the top, and normally I think that's quite a good sign. But I've seen people exploring, AI images recently and saying this is AI, and I genuinely wouldn't have known, which is quite alarming. But I do think that maybe what's going to happen is that the same way that people kind of stop being able to see banner ads, maybe they're going to start ignoring AI ads, or we're going to see even more people wanting user-generated content, since that is a really popular form of advert already. Maybe we're going to see a huge resurgence of user-generated content. And I definitely think, if Klarna starts to see a decline in their ads, maybe they should think about, doing some user-generated content where people were like, oh, I had the party coming up and, I wanted to get something, but I had a massive bill. Now I can just pay in 3 and it made everything better, that kind of thing. That sort of is a bit more organic. I do wonder how more complex brands would potentially handle it as well, because I suppose Klarna, their offering and what they do and their branding is really cut and dry. I think it's like, we're Klarna, pay in 3. I haven't actually looked at the adverts and I really want to have a little nosy at them now to see kind of whether we would be able to spot which one's AI, which ones aren't, or if we feel like there's any tells. But I can imagine maybe some other brands that have a bit more of a complex offering might struggle to do everything with AI. But then I don't know the behind the scenes of Klarna. This is the thing. I don't know the effort they've put into these models that they're using. It's all very it's very, very interesting. I feel like I had so many thoughts there. Apologies to anybody listening and to the 3 people here listening to me.
My next question is actually for either Joe or Tim, whichever of you jumps in first, about the cost saving. So the story here is about how much money has been saved from producing marketing materials. Where do you see businesses putting that, redistributing that money? Do you think that they expand their marketing offering, or that's going into other areas? And what would you do if you were in that position? Where would you put that spend?
I think for me, looking at it, it's the equivalent of £7.8 million that Klarna's saved by doing AI. I think personally, I would put it back into additional products and services and being able to increase our offering to our consumers. But I suppose every business is going to have a different approach to what they would do with any savings that they make.
Tim, in the same position, what would you do?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd probably be tempted to put it back into the ad budget itself. I would have thought. I think it's a really interesting topic, and Klarna seems to have been quite on the forefront of this. I think they've been working really closely with OpenAI, haven't they? Because I remember a story from February. They'd cut their customer service time by 2/3 or something there, or 2/3 of all Klarna's inbound customer service requests were handled by AI. And the story there was that it had the same satisfaction score, but I think a reduced sort of repeat rate. So actually, it looked like it had increased the number of or increased the percentage of these issues that were resolved. So there's clearly some sort of close relationship there with OpenAI and Klarna, and they seem to be very keen on publishing these joint case studies. So this, to me, looks like a piece of OpenAI marketing where they are building use cases very publicly for their systems to answer one of the main objections that seems to be going around at the moment, which is everyone's spending all this money on AI infrastructure. Where's the actual benefit? And these sort of stories are really powerful marketing collateral, I guess, in that fight. It'll be so interesting. And I'm not sure anybody really knows where this is going, because on the one hand, you could say, when Photoshop was invented, it was feared that, all the designers who had been doing the print design on their printing things and illustrating and manually and all of this was like, oh, well, what's going to happen to all of that? Is art dead? Is design dead? And it ended up not being dead. So you could say, well, this is just another one of those where those people ended up working on more advanced tasks. They ended up being a bit more strategic. But on the other hand, it's such a shift. It might not actually be the same as that. And I don't think we really know what the limits of the AI's capabilities are going to be. Does this mean that, for example, Klarna is going to be able to run very precisely targeted ads to individuals based on their own purchase history? Like, could Klarna look in your purchase history and show you a picture of the exact shoes that you bought on someone who looks like you with targeted ad copy based on you? Like, is this eventually where things are going, where ads can be targeted on an individual basis? We don't really know. That would seem to be a use case which would be far in excess of what humans will ever be able to do. So that could be interesting. And then what do the humans do? Because if everyone has this technology, then that just becomes the baseline for advertising. So given that most advertising is essentially a zero-sum game, how do you get an advantage in that space? So I don't think I really have any answers. It's just more questions, I think. I don't know where this goes.
Do you think, like they say, people buy into people, don't they? Do you think AI could ever have a personality that someone would buy into? Because I think when you read something that's AI generated, it seems very AI generated. Does that make sense? And doesn't
Yeah.
really have much of a personality or life behind it. But would it get to that point?
Something I would love to know, because I don't know if this is just because I'm a strange, weird person, which we know, but I feel differently about the 3 different AI platforms that I use. Like, I feel quite indifferent towards ChatGPT. I have quite an affinity for Claude. Perplexity, I feel like, is really cold. And I don't know if that's just me. I'm probably projecting on them, but I would love to know, especially if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please let me know in the comments if you feel that way about any of the AIs that you interact with. And would you feel differently? Like, I think it's really interesting when people have different voices for their series. And I'd be really interested to know how it differs, how people kind of talk to them and the attitude they have towards them, depending on which Siri they've chosen. But that makes me think that maybe there is the opportunity in the future for AI to take on this weird, personable vibe. Dale, what
God, I'm
did you
sorry,
think
my
I was
brain
going
has
to
just gone to
say?
this place where like somebody who's like diehard about a particular brand has got like the Ronald McDonald AI assistant voice, and they'll just like they're so into it they'll listen to whatever Ronald has to say, or people get so comfortable with their AI assistant that they don't second guess some of the suggestions it makes. Like if you look back to the GPT 4.0 release the other week, where it's all laughing and very Her from the film, Samantha from the film Her, and that starts to feel like a little bit more like you're talking to a person, but you're not. Like in a year or 2 from now, and you're talking, when they roll it out to Google Assistant, and it's just like the standard, and Siri that becomes the standard in a couple of years from now. Whether you become so familiar with it, you just don't even think like, here are your latest couple of emails, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, right, okay. Oh, yeah, there's that thing. And you're just more likely to actually pay attention to it and therefore be susceptible to the sales message in the email. And we'll wait and see when Ronald actually gets launched.
Back to your question, Joe. I saw this week that Instagram had started adding "made with AI" in as a little tag on some posts and stories, right? And it seems to be detecting, even if there's been sort of quite minor use of AI in, say, Photoshop to do like a generative fill or something. And I can only think that that tag will be effective if there is some inherent skepticism that we all have with AI. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that, right? It's almost like assuming that we will treat AI content and human content differently. And I don't know. I'm trying to work out what the general public think of this. My personal feeling is that if I see an AI generated image in a product ad and I know that that image is generated by AI, I immediately don't trust it. But I don't know if that's just a personal bias rather than a human bias. I think if someone showed me I had this argument with people on LinkedIn. If someone shows you a picture of a trainer or a sneaker in an ad and you knew that that was AI generated, it would have no sort of resonance with me at all. And someone said, oh, how is that any different to showing you like a rendering of that product? And it's like, yeah, that's sort of fair enough. But fundamentally, it just feels off if there's been a text prompt that generated that picture and that picture isn't a representation of something that's real.
Yeah, I think that's the issue where it becomes different. If they're just generating like trainer and then the actual product itself isn't accurate to the image, that is different. A lot of the times, even if you've got a 3D render that's been maybe manipulated in space and put on a interesting background, you still know that when the product arrives, you're going to get what was in that image. But something that I think is interesting is I think a little bit of editing and AI in stuff can be fine. Like I saw some pictures that have been falsely flagged as AI on Instagram. They were adverts for, well, just social media posts from a musical that's having a revival, and it had all the dancers, and then they had like edited in like rainbow lines between them, and it was obvious that what happened is then Instagram had seen that and thought, well, that isn't real. You can't get those lines in a photo like that unless you edit it. This must be AI. Whereas I don't think, if I saw that image, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's fake. I'm not going to go see the musical. Like, there's a bit of like, what do they call it? Like you know that that's not real, and you understand that isn't, that's just to spice up the image. So I think if people were using like a little bit of AI in images, people wouldn't mind. I think the concern is that the whole thing will be generated and it will be, but then we see this all the time. We see this all the time when it will be like pictures of, women, and it will say you take this weight loss drug and your waist will go in, and it's obviously photoshopped, but for a lot of people, it might not be obvious to them, or like, it will be a drawn image of something like that, or so it's kind of, it's a hole that we could definitely keep digging, I think.
I think the whole AI thing as a whole is very polarizing, because on one hand it's going to improve efficiency, make everything a lot quicker and a lot easier, but then at the same time, how much is it going to skew the reality of whatever the product or service is that someone's offering, because AI is pulled from all these different information sources. So, yeah, there'll be disclaimers everywhere next.
Be interesting if like somebody asked a question on Google, for instance, and was like, best trainers for long distance running, and it recommended a company who actually their trainers don't do that, and then they were brought by that person, and the person, who do they complain to? Do they complain to Google, or do they complain to the company? Because Google said those trainers are fine, but maybe there was something on the website that had like pulled through. It's really like, I feel like that's going to be a big issue too. We could go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a subject that's going to just keep coming back around. Just to pull us back onto the headline again, but with a slight twist. Salesforce reported their first period of single-digit growth like ever. Like they've had like a pullback. Their growth has become stunted. It's still like up, but for a big company like that, you would expect higher growth. And this is after a long period of them doing a lot of AI work within the platform to like bring it into their processes and stuff like that. And with all of the expense that they've got, it's not turning into the revenue generation that you're kind of hoping for. Like you're trying to make a saving here, therefore you free up people and time and resources for X. But it doesn't seem, even in like some of the leading tools in that space, are actually seeing a benefit from. So it comes back to, is it worth the investment in the beginning? I don't know. Like, it's a real tough one for business owners, even for like marketing managers, directors, to make that choice of, am I going to put that time into learning how it works and trying to get something out of it, and am I going to see the ROI from it? Much with many things. And lastly, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. Feel free to chime in. I'm thinking back to your role, Joe, as a sales director. I've seen a lot of salespeople talk about how they're using AI to kind of put emails out there and reach people and things like that. But it always comes back to one thing, and it's a human connection. Like as soon as you get on the phone with that person, you have a much easier time and better time of converting that person into a sale, into a new client, than if you also automated that as well. It's like it's going to save you some time in some ways, but always comes back to that human, that person, the expertise.
Yeah, I think for me, there's always going to have to be a human element in everything that we do. But I think, personally, I think AI is a little bit scary as a whole. Maybe that's because I'm a little bit old-fashioned in that sense. But yeah, I think the whole thing's very scary.
I think it's similar to the. Sorry, Tim.
Well, the people who are building this, like Anthropic is the furthest ahead. They have an interoperability team, don't they, to try and figure out what the hell is going on in the box. Most of the other firms actually don't even care what's going on in the box. So I think anyone who's not scared about this is not spending enough time on it, because we're creating a form of life, a form of intelligence that we have absolutely no idea what its capabilities are.
There's been a lot of movies about this.
What's it called? Is it the singularity? The point where artificial intelligence becomes more intelligent than all the humans on Earth combined or something? Well,
Yeah, I've heard that term before.
Yeah, but can they do marketing as well as we can? And if you want to find out how well we do marketing, go to exposureninja.com/review, and you can request a free website and marketing review. And we'll show you how we can help you hit your marketing goals for this year. That's exposureninja.com/review.
Joe, just before we move on, because I'm really fascinated with the idea of copy. And since ChatGPT came out, actually before then, we've been trying to get AI to do like really good copy. And it's probably, I don't know, I'd say if I had to put a number, it's probably like 75% of the way there. But it's that final 25% that's the difference between like boilerplate copy and great persuasive copy. And interested in your story that Klarna had said they use their copy assistant tool for 80% of all copywriting. You asked about like building the relationship with the people. In your role as sales director,
yeah.
do you use or could you see a time where you are using AI to handle the sort of written communications with prospects and leads, or would you always have a human leading that process?
It's a really good question, because I feel like from a business perspective, we need to be very dynamic and we need to be able to move with the times and become more efficient. And I can see the benefits that, artificial intelligence, copywriting, and even voices that can be generated could be very useful for that, because you can get a lot of stuff done in a very small period of time. But at the same time, I have a very strong belief that you're always going to need someone behind it that's going to be able to, I don't know, almost connect with someone on an emotional level, whether it be through what they're writing, because a good book, like a really good book, you can connect with it really well. You can almost imagine yourself in it. And it's almost the same when you're talking to someone via email. You can get a bit more chatty and have a bit more of a less, I don't know, rigid response that I feel you might get from an AI. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as clued up on it as probably you guys are. But I do always think you're going to need a very strong human element in what you do.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, it's, the GPT-4o demo where they're doing like real-time voice conversations. You could have, 10,000 of your best prospects called in the next 10 minutes. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? But
it would.
I guess it's like that trade-off, isn't it, between the volume and then what's the risk in that situation? Do you burn those leads if those calls don't go right? And when they say yes, what are they saying yes to? Have you verified all of the claims being made by those AI bots? It's
Oh yeah, I remember back when AI first started kicking off, wasn't there people asking the AI, like, I think it was a car company, and they were saying like, can you do me a discount? Can you do this for £1? And the AI was like, no. And then it was like, oh, come on, yes you can. Yes, I know that you can. You can. And then it was like, okay then, and just did it. And it was really ridiculous. So it's like, yeah, that's very true actually, Tim. If you had savvy people on that call who knew how to manipulate the AI into sorting a deal, you'd have to be really careful.
Gives me an idea for a business.
Well, I'm going to take us on to the final story. And Jess, I believe it was yours, and something about Roblox.
Yes, yeah. This is, if you're having an existential crisis right now, this is your little cuddle after AI intense AI corner. Basically, this is really a story about meeting people where they are and really being very creative about where you're putting yourself. This isn't going to be a story about why you should, put yourself in Roblox. It's really not. It's just a story about, really connecting with your potential customers where you are. So I recently came across this article about how IKEA have created a virtual store within Roblox where you can work. And here's kind of the synopsis from their website from thecoworker.co.uk. Get paid to work as a co-worker at IKEA on Roblox and experience how careers are done differently. With us, you have the opportunity to move departments, flex your skill, and get promoted. At IKEA, career progression is unique because you can grow in any direction. We believe in recruiting people based on our values rather than simply ticking all the right boxes on a CV. So they've obviously found this sort of, they're trying to help themselves stand out in the job market by saying, you can move between departments, but I guess it's quite difficult to sort of show that experience in an interview setting. So they're going to show that in a video game setting. And based on my knowledge of Roblox, I really expected this to be like a mini game for kids to play, like younger kids to sort of work, like inspire them to work at IKEA in the future. But according to the website, it's a paid role above minimum wage. It's like 13 quid an hour, and it's for over 18s only, which also surprised me because I also thought Roblox had like a below 15 years old audience. But according to data, 42% of Roblox users are actually aged 17 to 24 and then 25 plus. So I'm assuming that's like a stat that they've squished together. But IKEA UK's marketing communications manager, Kemi Anthony, says to bring career progression at IKEA to life made sense to demonstrate the co-worker journey in a less traditional way by recruiting people to try it out for themselves at IKEA on Roblox. What's really interesting to me is this isn't the first time we've talked about Roblox and brand collaborations on this podcast, because they actually kind of had done a collaboration with Ryanair, or at least people had independently created an entire Ryanair airline simulator on Roblox. And Ryanair was like, well, why would we ignore this? Why don't we go and connect with them and see what we can collaborate on? And while I was trying to do some research to find like the original press release rather than just stuff that was in other articles, I came across a lot of existing Roblox mini games and videos where people are doing hide and seek in IKEA, where they'd already built these spaces. So IKEA is obviously doing some really good social listening to understand that their potential audience, in this case, to become co-workers at IKEA, are on this platform. And then they're creating a completely bespoke experience. And we've seen, so for those who don't know, you can create games within Roblox. It's a game itself, but it's free and you can create games within it. Actually, no, this was a different one. Ignore that. But this is the same case with Roblox. The other situation was Epic Games, who own Fortnite. You can also create mini games within Fortnite. The British Army created a game in there where you could learn about joining the army, and it very swiftly got banned because it went against the terms of service. So make sure you're being careful. But it is really interesting to see that businesses are thinking, okay, who do we want to target? We want to target like school leavers, let's say. So even though it's 18 plus, I think it's maybe targeted more around that 18 mark. And they're saying, well, actually, a certain percentage of this audience who, could be right for us, who may not have a CV yet, who may be able to show their skills within a game and show that they have teamwork, are actually playing this game. And we can connect with them there. And I just thought that was really cool. I feel like I talk about brand collaborations a lot on this podcast, but it's because I'm always so fascinated with how they land there. And like I said, I think this is just fantastic social listening from IKEA.
It reminds me of the Ryanair one from last year.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, they built this entire thing. You can go be a pilot, steward. You can work at the desk with tickets, whatever you want. It's just like being in the... being everywhere, being omnipresent.
But that wasn't even owned by Ryanair. But Ryanair saw that as an opportunity to connect and say, look, we see the work that you've done. We'd love to connect with you. I think the group initially thought that Ryanair contacted them as a takedown notice and to have a go at them for copyright infringement, but they weren't. They were like, actually, this is really fab and we want to connect.
I can't help looking at this with I'm really trying not to be skeptical, but...
Come on, Tim, be honest. Come on.
You know that digital PR technique a few years ago that got really popular with like the dream job? Like, this company's advertising this job where you just have to eat ice cream all day or you have to like stroke cats all day. And it was just a way of generating press and getting links, essentially. And that's kind of what it turned into. And then seeing that they're actually collecting job applications on this, and it's an email capture as well. I can't help thinking, on one hand, I admire it, and I sort of hope that it's like this, that this is just a massive lead capture recruitment marketing exercise by IKEA to get people to imagine themselves working for IKEA. And there's probably, in my head, there's very few of these actual roles available. I could be completely wrong. And what they want to do
it said there's only 10.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then there's like an email sequence that bounces them into, but have you thought about applying to your real local IKEA store? And
yeah.
I don't know.
I think they want influencers personally, because on the form they ask for your TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, I think. And it says it's optional, but I think they are looking for like video creators. And also I would think the most beneficial way to do this would be not to gate it in that way and not to actually pay people and hire them, but to let anyone of any age come and play the IKEA working minigame, right? Because that to me feels like a way more efficient way to get people to want to work at your place. Otherwise, only 10 people are gonna, what if all 10 of those are just a bad fit? So yeah, I think you might be onto something there, Tim, in terms of, like you said, like when they would be like, you could be like a biscuit taster, or like a chocolate. I didn't Aldi do an Easter egg taster, I think.
Right.
And it's just,
Oh, that's sick, because then you get the anchor text and you could drive it through to the Easter egg category page. I love it. I mean, yeah. Sorry, Tim.
Joe, this evening, are you thinking of opening up a beer and heading over to the IKEA store online and doing your shift for the evening? How do you feel about this one?
Definitely not. But I do have a bit of a thought on it, though. Do you think it's maybe going to be a good way to capture some new customers for the future if you've got a load of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds going to IKEA now online, so when they do eventually move out and go and get their own home, that the first thing they're then going to think of is, will I go to IKEA? So maybe it's not helping them directly right now, but in the future it's going to give them a bigger audience again and keep them relevant.
I don't know about the three of you, but I remember when I was younger that IKEA used to, like, getting an IKEA catalog was like the thing. Like Argos catalog was here, IKEA catalog was like next level. Like it's just like something you would go through and look through. Like I remember my auntie and my mom and all these just going, "You're going to IKEA? Make sure you get me a catalog." Even though like I'm not going to go there ever. Like it's miles away. I don't have a car. I'm not going to get stuff. But I'm going to get the catalog because the catalog was so cool. And they would like put the catalogs in a central location in towns close by, so you can go pick them up. Even this is before the internet. I'm talking like years ago, but they knew that people really cared about the brand and wanted access to it. And even though like people weren't able to go directly, just the earliest point of putting your brand in front of someone, that to make them front of mind when they do come to make a purchase. Yeah, it's something you should be executing. And a secondary, I wonder if it's like the S curve on S curve thing, like. You've grown your SEO or your PPC and it's worked so far. Right, we're going to do some more brand stuff. Okay, that's worked. Let's do some more PR stuff. What can we do? Okay, we need to recruit more. Okay, let's try this bit. And it's just, they've reached a level of growth where like, we've tried everything and this is the last thing on the list. There's absolutely no harm. Let's just have a go. It sounds like fun. Might be able to enter it for Cannes Lions or something. Why not?
Yeah. What I got reminded of that Joe just kind of triggered is in 2008, IKEA and The Sims 2 collaborated and produced The Sims 2 IKEA home stuff. And that is the perfect example of collecting the customers of the future, right? And sort of showing them like physically, you can put this in your home in The Sims. In the future, maybe you want to go to actual real IKEA, or kids making their bedrooms, then being to their parents, we can go to IKEA and do this. So IKEA actually has a history of doing some quite interesting collaborations and connections. So yeah, but I still think Tim is right. I still think it might be a little bit of a sneaky kind of campaign. So yeah.
Just looking at this, there is they have a plan to recruit the next generation of store workers. It's a PR campaign with Weber Shandrick, and Mother was the main agency to do it. This is phase 1, so it looks like there's going to be more of these. coming out. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do. I found a few holes in this looking at it. So the marketing pitch is like, hey, we want to invite the next generation of worker, and you don't have to just have the right boxes ticked on your CV. We're very forward focused, all this stuff. On the note to editors that goes out with the release, it says the recruitment process includes a questionnaire and will require an updated CV. Okay, so HR is still in control of proper recruitment.
Do you think you can effectively demonstrate your skills for employment on Roblox?
Oh, that's a good question.
Curious.
I do wonder. I haven't played a lot of Roblox. I've got younger siblings that do. And it seems like there is a lot of puzzle solving, problem solving. I guess they might be seeing how you handle conflict. If somebody comes in and says their meatballs are the wrong shape, then, how do you handle that? Or there was a thing here about what if you run out of pixelated... Where is it? What would you do if we ran out of pixelated hot dogs in our bistro? How would you handle a challenge? And, what if... I'm trying to think of antics that go on at IKEA. What if there's like kids running around and trashing the displays? I wonder if that's kind of what it will be. I don't know. I'm really intrigued. My housemate applied for it. I don't know if he'll get it because I feel like a lot of people are going to apply for this. But if he does, I'll give you an update, everyone. Or in a few months, influencers are going to be posting about it because I think they are asking for a TikTok handle, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I think is them trying to find influencers to do it. But only pay them £13 an hour rather than like $3,000 for a post.
Tim, you feel like doing a weekend shift at IKEA online on Roblox?
I tell you what I feel like. I feel like signing up for this so I can see what the email automation flows are on the back end.
Yeah,
that's what I feel
too.
like. So I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, well, that's made it really tricky now to see what the story of the week is going to be that we turn into marketing tasks, because I'm like, should we all be heading over to see what the email automation is for IKEA's Roblox hiring system or not? It's a tricky one because we talked about AI overviews a fair bit recently. IKEA, Klarna. There's a lot of AI in our Dojo episodes. I'm going to pick the IKEA one. So you're really gonna... I don't know how this is going to go. So, Tim, we're going to pick you first. Tim.
Me?
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Why me?
I don't mind going first. I have an answer. I have an answer
okay.
prepared. If you'd like, if that would be helpful to you. If you're
Yes.
you're scrambling, panicking.
Okay, all right.
I'm still filling out the form.
He's still signing up for his second job at Roblox IKEA, Dale. It's important. So yeah, what I would advise to marketing managers who are hearing this story is just do some social listening. Search your name in places like YouTube, like your brand name in places like YouTube, on Reddit, and see what people are saying, what people are kind of, how is your brand being represented? Are people for some reason obsessed with it and making hide and seek IKEA Roblox, and you're like, oh, there's a space for me there? Like I said, Ryanair, they're amazing at social listening, and they found out that there was like a Roblox thing. I'm not saying it'll be on Roblox, but you might find out that there's a niche forum where people are talking about you because they use your products or services in a specific way that you hadn't thought about before. And then you might be like, whoa, this is a really cool way that I can connect with this audience. And I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have searched for that. So I would definitely say, like, do some social listening, find out where your peeps are hanging out online. And maybe you'll meet with some unconventional people that are doing things a bit differently, and it might help inspire you.
I'm going to give Tim a few more minutes to just think this one over, because I'm going to add on to that, if you don't mind, which is, you'd be surprised if you're a B2B marketer or B2B2B or whoever, and you think that there isn't anything social for you to find and pay attention to. You would be surprised. Like, I was on LinkedIn yesterday, which is a fairly obvious platform, but on there yesterday, and a few people popped up on my timeline talking about lean manufacturing and lean ways of doing stuff. And I don't work in lean, but I appreciate it. But just looking through the kinds of content that people are talking about, or the problems that they're having, a lot of the time there's like nobody responding to it, or they're talking about a problem that they're having, and there's no immediate solution. If you were there and paying attention, you'd be like, well, that should be a piece of content, and that should be a downloadable, and we can do a webinar about that, and make sure that we're responding to these posts and directing them to this, and there's an email sequence. Or like, if you just pay attention to what people are actually saying about the problems that you solve, you're more likely going to. Well, I mean, I'm not expecting there to be a lean manufacturing. There might be a Toyota factory on Roblox, maybe, I don't know. But like it does work and apply to B2B as well. So don't for a second think that it doesn't. Go spend a day just looking through social if you can afford that time. Tim, go on. You've had enough time now. Which task can business owners take from this story?
Well, I'm just wondering if this is a sign that recruitment marketing is sort of coming back, and that most of us think just about marketing to generate customers, but there are plenty of businesses out there that recruitment is as much of an issue as generating new business, and that these types of marketing campaigns can be really effective. Even if it's the dream job thing, it was really popular a few years ago. I guess there's been a lot more job cuts than maybe job new hires over the last year or so. But if you are struggling to hire, those sorts of tricks do still work. And here's a great example of sort of taking it to the next level potentially. I don't know how many leads they're going to be getting, how many recruitment leads they're going to be getting from this, but it's going to be substantially more than the typical day of IKEA recruitment triage, I guess. So if you need to recruit, don't forget digital marketing can also work there. So yeah,
super.
Be creative.
100%. We're going to head into some quick fire questions. My mouth is quicker than the words coming out of it. Sorry about that. For you, Joe, I hope you're ready for them. Let's go. Joe, if you had just 1 hour to improve your marketing, what would you work on?
I would definitely take my time to learn a bit more about AI. I'm only just opening the doors to it now, and I feel like from everything that I've seen, the possibilities are endless.
Great idea. What would you do with an infinite marketing budget?
The same thing anyone would do. Try to take over the world.
By Google and redirect it to your homepage.
Great idea. Joe, which marketing skill would you recommend that the 18-year-old you worked on, and why?
I think 18-year-old me would definitely need to understand the numbers behind everything a little bit more, the data analytics, what each stat and figure represents, and how you can push that to benefit you in whatever it may be, whether it be lead capture or, more exposure for yourself, whatever it may be. I definitely would have recommended that you take more time to understand it.
Love that. Joe, what are you most excited about in marketing right now?
Oh God, there's loads, but I think this whole artificial intelligence thing is really exciting and really scary, and I just can't wait to see where it all goes. We're living in crazy times at the minute, crazy times.
Fun though.
Yeah, definitely.
And Joe, who should we invite to be our next podcast guest?
I think you should invite Jason Savage, who is our head of sustainability, because he absolutely loves all this kind of stuff, and I think he would fit in really well. So I'm going to drop him an email as soon as we get off this and tell him to get in touch.
Super. Please do. That'd be absolutely fantastic to have them on. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. I really appreciate you bringing that story. It was a lot of fun diving into that one. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And thank you to you, the listener or watcher of this week's podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us, you can go to exposureninja.com/podcast and you see 300 plus episodes talking about SEO, content marketing, PPC, email marketing, website development, conversion rate optimization, you name it, it's well covered. If you want to increase your revenue, that's the website and the podcast to go to. And thanks again, and see you all next week. Bye.